Hello everyone, it's Shannon here. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, we are going to do some cross stitching and create this super cute reindeer card. Plus, I'm going to share with you some of my tips and tricks for creating your own designs with the stitchable dies. So here are all the new stitchable dies that came out in Waffle Flower's stitchable release. We have several border dies as well as some little tags. We have these shape dies that cut out almost like panels, as well as some Christmas shaped dies like this sweater one here. We're going to use the sweater one for today's card. I'm going to first die cut it out of a heavyweight cardstock. This is a 110-pound weight. I definitely recommend a heavy weight. And then you can see most of the little negative openings came out. But I'm going to use this really brilliant die. This is the A2 Piercing Panel die, and just by simply rubbing my die cut over that panel, all the little raised areas are going to help to pop out the remaining negative pieces that are inside my die cut. Just have a couple there, just rubbed it a little bit more, and there you can see my die cut is clean and I'm ready to do my designing. I'm going to start by grabbing a pencil here, and I'm going to start making my design. And when I make my design, I'm actually taking my pencil and I'm connecting one dot to another dot, making that actual cross stitch. So I'm making little X's here on my die cut. And first started with the trim, and once I had the trim on the sweater all figured out, then I moved to an actual colored pencil. And the colored pencil is going to make those little X's a little bit more visible, but also it's going to help me to know which color thread I want to use where. Now that I finished the trim, I'm going to move on to the tree. So I'm going to kind of work this tree out, and of course a pencil is good for this, because if you need to make you need to clean up or erase a mistake, you can do that. And now that I've got the tree pretty much figured out, I'm going to move on to the colored pencils. Now I'm going to start by just turning some of these X's into ornaments on the tree, and I have a couple colors picked out. I have an orange, a red, and a blue. And once I have all the ornaments kind of figured out, I then will fill in the rest of the X's on the tree with green, except for the trunk in brown. And then I added some kind of stars to the other kind of open areas of the sweater. Now I'm going to ink blend this sweater a little bit. I want the sweater to be red. I'm going to stitch everywhere that doesn't have a little X right now that with colored pencil. I'm going to stitch that with red thread. And I don't want that white outline from the cardstock. So I decided to die cut it out of white so I could do my system of design and then ink blend over it. And so most of my little X's are still visible because I used those colored pencils, which are wax based and will repel the ink that I used to ink blend over it. Now I'm going to start actually stitching my design up. I have a piece of dark thread here. I'm just going to tie a knot. I like to tie a knot. It's just easier for me for stitching because I don't have to worry about holding that end down. And I do double knot it so it's got so it definitely doesn't go through the hole. And then I'm just going to start stitching my trim on the sweater. So once I have that trim stitched, I then am going to knot it in the back, and then I will move on to another section of the trim. So I'm going to now move on to the neck and just continue to work my way around till I finish all the trim on the sweater. And this actually goes pretty quick. There's not a lot of trim. Only took about 15 minutes to do the trim. Now I'm going to move on to the tree, and for me I found it easier to start with the ornaments. So right now I am stitching up some of my red ornaments that are on my tree, and once I finish one I'll just move to the next one, and I'll just continue that process for all the remaining ornament colors. And once I finish the ornaments I'll move on to the tree, which I am just finishing up here, that last stitch. And here you can see the tree is all done. I even finished the stars in the sweater. So now all I have to do is the red part of the sweater. So I went ahead and stitched off camera all the remaining kind of negative open areas of the sweater in red, and now I'm ready to move on to my reindeer. I used the Holiday Lights die to die cut a strand of lights and some bulbs, and then I used the Be a Reindeer die to die cut 2 reindeer. Now this reindeer die cut is not complete. I didn't get all of the neck, but that's okay because I'm actually going to trim that right off. And the second part of reindeer, you can see a lot of it is missing. That's because I only want the forehead of this reindeer, so I trimmed off the cheeks, the inner part of the ear, and now I'm trimming off the antlers. This is just going to make it easier to get these different portions of the reindeer different colors. Now I'm going to ink blend this reindeer. I'm going to start with Antique Linen Distress Oxides and ink blend his lower part of his face. Once I get that blended, then I will move on to worn lipstick and ink blend his cheeks. And then I will move on to the inner part of his ear, ink blend that a little bit with the worn lipstick. And then I will use Frayed Burlap for his antlers and just ink blend a little bit of a gradation there, a little darker towards the base of his head and lighter on the way out. Then I have black soot here for the eyes and the nose. Quickly blend those. And then I'm ready for the last piece, which is that forehead, and I'm going to use tea dye for that. And again, kind of create a little gradation where it's a little darker at the top of his head and gets lighter towards the nose. And that completes all my parts for my reindeer. I have a little piece of Micropore tape that I'm going to add to the back side of my reindeer's face, and that will make those negative openings a little sticky, and I'll just pop in the eyes and the nose. Then I grabbed my Tombow Mono Sand Eraser and just kind of cleaned up the inner part of the ear, get a little too much of that worn lipstick there. And then I added some glue to the back side of the forehead and then just stuck that down onto my reindeer, and that will actually complete him. So I'm going to set him aside, and now I'm going to move on to my lights. I'm going to start by ink blending the strand with Lucky Clover Distress Oxide. Really quickly blend that and not worry about getting those bulbs colored because I have these die cuts here. I'm going to start with Squeeze Lemonade for one light bulb, then Barn Door, and then I got a little bit of that Barn Door on my Squeeze Lemonade light bulb, so I just ink blended that one again. Now I'm moving on to Spiced Marmalade, and then I'll finish up with Tumbled Glass for my last light bulb. So now that I have my light bulbs done, I'm just going to adhere them to the strand, and once I have that last light bulb stuck down, that strand is done and all my components are basically ready, and I can put this card together. So I've already gone ahead and created my Slimline Card Base out of white cardstock. A Slimline Card Base is made from 7 1/4 by 8 5/8 panel and then scored at 3 5/8. I did also create a aqua panel and stamped Merry Christmas on the front of it in VersaFine Onyx Black ink with the new 2-step Christmas stamp set. Now I'm going to move on to adhering the lights to my reindeer. Just added a little bit of glue to the backside of one of the bulbs and then stuck them to the antlers. Now I'm going to move on to some foam adhesive. I have this really handy strips of adhesive. I'm going to use a couple behind the antlers. After I get that first layer down, and then I'm going to add a second layer of foam. You need 2 layers of foam here behind the reindeer so he goes above the sweater, because of that thickness of the sweater, that's almost like 1 layer of foam adhesive. So now I've got all the adhesive on my reindeer. I just went ahead and removed the backing. I'm going to stick him down, and then I'll trim a little bit of the overhang of the lights. Now I'm going to move on to adhering my sweater. I'm going to use Tombow Mono Multi-Liquid Adhesive to stick the sweater down. You could definitely use hot glue if you prefer. This glue was handy, and I didn't have to wait for it to heat up. Once I get that in place, I'll then grab something weighted to kind of hold it down just so it stays nice and flat while it dries. I use actually the platform for my die cutting machine. And here is the finished card. And I'll hold my card up to the camera so hopefully you can get a good look at his cross-stitch sweater. I really had so much fun creating that design, and I can't wait to make some more. I think a whole kind of ugly sweater cross-stitch theme would be really fun. Now I'm going to move on to a second card that I created. This one I also made my own stitchable design. Here is the Stitchable Beanie Die, and just like I did with the sweater, I created my pattern first out of a pencil. Once I had it finalized, I moved on to my colored pencil, and then I moved on to the stitching. And now I'm going to grab some cards that I didn't actually design. I didn't do the pencil and the colored pencil. These I just kind of doodled almost with my thread. For the heart, I knew I wanted a rainbow, so I just started with pink and then worked my way through my rainbow colors. And for the circle, I knew I wanted to kind of do a mandala, so I just started at the center, did a design, and then just worked my way through my rainbow colors with that as well. So that's a good place to start if you find kind of designing from scratch your design a little intimidating. Maybe try like the heart or the circle. I hope you guys enjoyed today's cards and video. If you like any more information on the products I used, please check out the links below in the description. And if you like this video, I'd so appreciate it if you left me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.